Hello and welcome to our tutorial. So in this tutorial we're just going to do some very basic work in Blender. We're going to make a very simple object and then we're going to move that object, export it from Blender and bring it into Unity so we can use it in a 3D game. So we'll make a simple object here. So we're going to first of all go get some textures before we do any of that. So we'll select this guy here. So we've got a whole bunch of 3D textures we can use. So we've got stone wall, concrete wall, and a whole bunch of stuff here. So let's just pick one of these. So we'll let's just take this one here. So concrete wall, and we have a whole bunch of maps here. We're going to get a diffuse map, a normal map, displacement, roughness, and ambient occlusion. So for this exercise, we'll probably just use the first two, the diffuse and the normal. So we'll download these, and so we'll take our normal map here, and we will download it, and we will take the base color, and we'll download that. Okay, so we have both of them down. So we're going to make a wall, so let's press SY.1, so we'll make a skinny wall. I'm going to move this G on Z by 1. So let me turn on my keys here so you can see what I'm doing. And so there's my piece of wall. So this is the default cube in Blender, so if I go into UV editing you can see that it's already unwrapped, but it may not be unwrapped the way we want it to be. So let's set up our material here. So I'm going to call this wall, and I'm going to go into shading for a moment. So this is my principal shader, so I'm going to add an image texture, and I'm going to open that image texture, and the image texture I want is in my downloads folder, I think. Yeah, this is it here. So we've got our default, like this is the diffuse image, so the color image. So I'm going to open that and plug it into the base color, and then I'm going to add in another image. I'm going to open this, and this time we're going to bring in the normal map, which is this one here, and we want it to be a non-color normal map. Now this is a yellow output, a color output, and the normal is a vector input, so these two won't connect properly. So we need a sort of a converter in between. So we're going to use our normal map node here, so we can go color in and our vector out. And this is how strong that will be, so how bumpy our normal map will be. So let's have a look at that in our rendered mode. So this is our wall here. So that's not too bad, but let's go back to our UV editing here and see what we can do, and we'll just drop in the diffuse so we can see. So at the moment each so these sides are long and rectangular, but over here they're represented as a square. So I'm going to go to face select and see if we can set this up correctly. So I'm going to select the side here, so that's that one. So I'm going to press A and then G, so I'm going to place this over here, take those two and press G and then Y, and then I'm going to select these two and just holding down the shift key and press G and X. Put that there, and I'm going to repeat that with the rest of these. Okay, I don't have to be absolutely exact. Okay, and so I've gone 2. This is number 3. So I'm just going to place this kind of in the center, scale it on X, scale it on Y. Once it's approximately correct, we'll be okay. And then this underside here as well. So again, A, S, X, and then S, Y. So I'm just doing all this by I. I'm not putting in any numbers. So I'm going to press A again, and we can see that we've got these sort of edges set up, but not the main panes. So I'm going to go A, and I'm just going to scale this up till it fits my image. So it's not 100% out there, but it's fine. I'm going to do the same with this. A, G, and S. And press G again, and just position that there. Now when I go into look dev, we can see that this looks much better. Now we have banding here, and that banding is because this should have gone this way. And I should have done that with all of these. So SY and SX. But it's not a difficult one to fix. So SY, SX. And we've one more to do. And SY and SX. Okay, so we've created a problem and fixed it, which is always good to know how to do that. And then finally, what I want to do is I want this pattern to look like this, so that the dirt or the dark bit is at the bottom. So I can simply do this by rotating that 90, 90, 90, so that's at the bottom, and we can see if I want this the same here, I can go or minus 90. So now that's kind of the same. So that's now my wall. I'm not going to worry too much about how it's lit. So the lighting that we have here doesn't matter at all, because we're going to obviously relight this object in Unity. So all that matters is that the materials are correctly applied to it. So I'm going to save this blend file. I don't have to, but I'm going to save this. So where will we put this? We'll just throw it on my desktop for now, and we'll call it wall. Okay, so we'll save that. But I'm not going to bring the blend file into Unity. Unity won't open one. So we'll go File, Export, Fbx File. And when I export the Fbx file, there's a couple of important things to do here. So it's going to be called wall. If you look here, the light is not selected and the camera is not selected, but the wall is selected. So it's only the selected objects that we want to export. If we don't tick that box, it will actually export the light and the camera and the wall. And while that's not the end of the world, if we do that, it will actually reposition this thing here, the pivot point. It will be kind of in a median position or in between the three objects, and therefore when we try and rotate the wall, we'll have less control over it. Now there's ways to fix it, but rather than create a problem and have to fix it, we'll just get it right before we export. So the object that's selected, that's the only object I want to export, so I've ticked this box. I'm going to leave scale for now, leave it at a scale of 1 and hit export FBX. So that's us done basically in Blender. Now when we export an FBX file and we go into Unity, so where am I? Here I am in Unity. So I was going to save this project and then start a new one, new project. So this is the latest version of Unity, so as of recording this, 2019.2. So we'll call this FPS intro, and we will put this on our desktop, and it's a 3D project. We'll hit create and it will load up in a minute or two. So well, we're trying to bring objects out of Blender and into Unity, and so a blend file, for example, won't open in Unity. A blend file only is really able to open, or is only compatible with Blender. There are lots of different types of file that we can open here in Unity, but the one that's most applicable to us is an FBX. But there are some consequences to setting up an FBX file, which we'll look at now. So my layout is I use 2x3. This is my default sort of setup. and I normally have a one column layout. That's my preference. But then I've been using Unity quite a while, so that's kind of an older way to look at it. You may want a different way. But anyway, that's how I'm going to set it up for now. This is my inspector, so if I select an object, for example, my main camera, I'll get the properties of the camera, my light, the properties of the light. This is the project window where all of our assets are, and this is our hierarchy, so anything in the current scene that we're editing will be displayed here and in the editor, and then this window down here is the game. So what you see here is what is played when you press play in the game. So let's import our Fbx file. So it's called wall. It's an Fbx file, so it's a 3D object. So we're not importing the blend file, but the Fbx. And here it is here. So I'm just going to drag and drop it into my scene. There it is. And it's fine. It's kind of looks like it's the correct scale. We can see it here in the actual game. But we have one or two issues with it. And the main one is that it's gray. So it doesn't have the material that we put on it. Now it has a material called wall, but that doesn't contain any of the images that we want to use. And you can see here it's grayed out, so I can't edit this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new material and then apply that new material, basically replace the material that's on it with the one that we make when we're going to put our images into that. So let's do that. So over here I'm going to right click and go create material, and we're going to call this concrete wall 1. And now we need to, in this one, put in the images that we used earlier in Blender. So let's import those images. Now I think they're in my download folder, so let's go find them. So here's the two of them here, so we'll import them. Now we should set up a few folders here and organize ourselves, but we've only very few assets, so we'll be kind to ourselves for now and organize ourselves after we have it working. So the diffuse map, the base color map, needs to go into this first slot here, albedo. So we'll put that in there. And then the normal map needs to go into the normal map slot. Now we had a few other maps that we could have downloaded, like a roughness map, etc. So we could drop them in here either to metallic, or if we had a height map, an ambient occlusion map. So there were other maps we could be using here to enhance the look of our object. But that's now created. We've made our concrete wall, so we can drag and drop that onto our object. And we can see not only is it applied, but it's applied using the same coordinates that we used over here. So the pattern, this darker pattern, is at the base of the wall in Blender. It's also at the base of the wall over here. So applying the material in Blender was worthwhile because it gave us control over where those images will be applied when we're here in Unity. So even though when we bring the Fbx file in, it doesn't recreate this automatically, we can just very quickly make a new material and then apply it to the object. And then the nice thing about this is we can say, you know, how shiny it's going to be or how matte it's going to be. We can play around how dark the image is going to be. So we have quite a bit of control over the image and the object and how it looks after we've brought it in. And then of course obviously we can then in here we can relight it, or you know, we'll have a look at how you might do that more creatively another day. But suffice it to say, we have lots of control and lots of options when it comes to how this object is going to look in our game. So this basic tutorial, just to recap, is about bringing in blend files into Unity. So you create your object here. It can have an armature or not, as in this case here. You create the object, you either UV unwrap it, or if it's the default object, it's already unwrapped. So we have our texture coordinates that we can set up here. We set up our shader, like our material with its different images and different maps that we're going to use, be it ambient occlusion, etc., or normal maps or diffuse maps. And then when we're happy with how it looks here, then we export it as an Fbx file. We are just to reiterate, you have to be sure when you're exporting it that you tell it to export only the object that's selected. And then over here, when we've loaded up Unity, we right click and we import new asset, and we import our Fbx file. Then we right click, we create a new material, and that material we add in our diffuse map and our normal map, and then we drag and drop them and place them on our wall. And that is going from Blender to Unity in a nutshell.